So Alex, it's not Diego Sanchez, but you got a pretty nice name here, a nice spot on this card. Were you happy coming off the last win to kind of be in this position with this fight against Jordan?
Yeah, I had actually asked for a matchup as soon as I could after the Josh Burkman fight. I even saw Sean Shelby in the back room after and told him I'd pick something up short notice, and just as soon as they had an opening to let me know. And he said the Diego matchup could have happened, but Diego was like one of maybe like 5 or 6 different bets that I've been down to fight. Like I know Carlos Condit's a good option. With a win, I was actually planning on seeing if Cerrone would want to fight in Dallas in September, but he just got matched up with Mike Perry, which is a really fun match. I'm not mad about that one at all. But yeah, I didn't expect Jordan Mein at all, and was really intrigued with the fight. And I know he's a striker, so there's bringing a lot of stand-up in this match. So that'll be fun.
Yeah, and I mean, you mentioned the veterans and everything. It's weird. Like Jordan's still a rather young guy, but he's been in the game, you know, it's seemingly as long as everyone. I think he had his first pro fight at 16.
Yeah, his debut was actually against Rory McDonald, where he lost. But man, he's had twice as many fights as I've had, and I've been doing this since I was a teenager. You know, that's a lot of experience. It's also a lot of wear and tear on the body. Yeah,
I mean, he even retired at one point. He was gone for a little bit and came back, and I think he's 1-1 since coming back. How do you judge a fighter like that? You know, that's clearly part of him wanted to step away from this game at some point, but he ended up coming back, like many do who retire. But how do you analyze someone like that?
You know what? He's been doing this his whole life. He'll definitely be super game when it comes down to fight. But I've been put in some like pretty high pressure situations, like late in fights when we're both tired and beat up, and I usually thrive in those moments. And usually guys who are, you know, like have stepped out in the past, they'll sometimes break thin. So I definitely plan on making this fight like a really nasty war. You know, kind of starting slow and finding my range, but as the fight goes on, picking up volume and power, and really just trying to make him quit.
Yeah, so you feel like kind of, because I guess maybe there's 2 sides to that coin. Like the veteran guy who's been through those situations, he might know how to handle it properly, but you as, you know, maybe the hungrier person, quote unquote, you might be able to push through a little.
Yeah, a lot of the odds makers had said, like in the analysis, that I was like younger and hungrier, and that would probably play a big factor, and we actually kind of banked on that. So like my conditioning's at an all-time high. This fight camp was like 3 months long, and shockingly have no injuries at all going into it, and this will be the smallest weight cut I've ever had. So there's a lot of really cool factors going into this fight.
Yeah, so you're just kind of feeling at this point you're in a good groove with good momentum, especially coming off the last one.
Yes, yeah, and man, I did a lot of pad work, so my striking's never been so sharp. So we cleaned up like a lot of big damaging shots, made them a lot more technical, but still just as powerful. So I'm excited to see how that plays into the fight.
Yeah, absolutely. And you guys are in a really good spot here. I mean, good opportunity for you to shine on Fox, the featured prelim, all that stuff. Does that do anything extra for you? Just kind of knowing, you know, maybe they're putting you in this position to kind of grow even more with the win here? Yeah,
I was very thankful for Sean Shelby. I had shown him some gratitude for the matchup against Josh Burkman, because it was a little like impromptu in last notice, and he'd give me a big opportunity here. And I was curious why this fight card was so stacked, and I was actually on Reddit, and one of the Redditors had asked, and somebody else had said it was Dana White's birthday, so I looked into it, and sure enough it is. So this is the biggest opportunity that I'll get in the UFC right now, and I'd be a fool to not really capitalize. So we have some really cool stuff planned, and I'm planning on making it like a nasty, ugly fight.
Yeah, is that extra pressure in a way, or do you think you thrive off that pressure, like knowing that there's, you know, Dana's going to be cage side, it's his birthday, featured prelim, like that is just more opportunity, so it excites you as opposed to being like, you know, pressure?
No, that definitely plays more into like my mindset for fights. You know, we've had to work on not taking so many risks and not brawling in the past just because of this level. That can be a little too risky, but in this fight, there's nothing going to be held back whatsoever. So this actually allows me to be more myself in the cage or in the octagon, which would be awesome.
Yeah, and you know, you mentioned some of those veteran names earlier in the interview that you asked for. Do you feel like you win here, maybe they'll give you one of those, or what's kind of the approach of how, you know, coming off a fight like this if you do succeed like you want to?
There's a lot of guys I'd fight in the division. The Cerrone fight just would have been cool because it was in Texas, but again, he's matched up already, and man, a fight with Perry or Cerrone would be awesome just because they're both really entertaining guys. But after this fight, I'm just more going to request to get on that Dallas card. The opponent is less relevant.
Okay, but you do, ideally you like those veteran names, and I'm guessing just because their status, their history in the sport helps elevate you if you beat them, right?
Yeah, it's not even that. It's more so because I was a fan. I remember being like a freshman and sophomore in high school watching the old UFC fights, and I'm fighting some of these guys that I was watching back then, and that's just that's an aspect that I can only really capitalize on like earlier in my career. Fighting the new wave of mixed martial arts is something I feel I can do later, and while these guys are still active and still fighting fighting, I'd like to get those veteran fights.
Right, so it's more of a personal gratification thing as opposed to, you know, just I'm trying to pick and choose these older guys that, you know, are maybe on their way out of the sport to build my career, or is it a little bit of both?
Yeah, it's actually not the latter at all, man. You know, the older veteran guys, I think they're more dangerous. You know, they've been in the fight game a very long time, and I just like to more test myself in those tougher fights.
Interesting. And so going into this fight with Jordan, is the plan to get a guillotine? I know we have your shirt here that you're wearing. Is that kind of the approach to every fight? Or you mentioned a little bit what that shirt means to you.
So yeah, you know, training at my gym, I go for guillotines all the time. That's my best submission by far. I actually have to not do them as much just to change things up. But my jiu-jitsu coach guy named Joel, he'll be in my corner. He got me this shirt when he was at the Worlds last year, and so I was wearing this on fight week. When I met Berkman, I had the shirt on, and I ended up catching him in the choke. But I have more wins by submission than anything else, and I never ever have a game plan to go for subs. It's usually either after getting taken down, I'll sub someone from the guard, or I'll rock them, and then they'll shoot in and then get subbed that way.
So do you kind of have that in your mind? You know, you wear the shirt. Is this like, you know, part of the good karma? Is it just something like, you know, if you lost they lost your baggage or something, would you not feel like ready to go into this fight because you wouldn't have the shirt?
Yeah, he actually got me a different guillotine shirt that I also have up there just in case. So yeah, it is a little bit of kind of like a fun kind of like tradition that I'm keeping alive.
Yeah, perfect. So going into this fight, I mean, do you think you hit that guillotine on Jordan? Do you think it plays out a different way? What do you kind of see as the most likely outcome in your victory?
Best case scenario is a knockout, and I always mentally prepare for a third round finish, just because if I don't get an early finish, I'm not like discouraged by any means, and I kind of like pace myself and plan mentally for like the fatigue of getting, you know, to the distance of the fight, and then getting a finish is always the goal. So making it the third round is kind of the best of both worlds. I still get the finish, but I mentally prepare to fight for, you know, more than 10 minutes.